months, so that's why.
Yeah, me neither. All right, here we go. Welcome, everyone, to the Northeast Indiana Basketball Summit. I'm your host, Ben Smith, joined by my co-host, Jeff Metzger. Before introducing our guest, we want to thank Feel for the Game for providing the platform to have all these presentations live and available for replay. You can check out all the resources over at feelforthegame.com. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Jon Plefka, head women's basketball coach at Post University. Coach is going to talk a little bit about playing under Bob Knight, but to intro him, he was a three-sport athlete at New Britain High School in Connecticut. In 2002, he was All-State in basketball. He received Division I offers in all three sports, ultimately decided to attend Texas Tech, where he played basketball under Bob Knight. Graduated in 2007 with a bachelor's in human development and family studies. In 2006, he was actually drafted by the Angels, and he played professional baseball for 8 years. He spent his off seasons coaching high school basketball in Connecticut. He spent one season at Post University as an assistant before being promoted to head women's basketball coach in March of 2017. Coach, I'm excited to hear some of your stories about Coach Knight. But you took over a program at Post that won 3 games the previous year and had only one winning season in program history. This past season, you went 22-6 overall. So to what can you attribute such a quick and substantial turnaround?
Yeah, man, it was a lot of fun, and I think overall, for us and at Post, it's really, as cliche as it is, it's really having the players that fit what we do best. And, I think that can't be overstated with why we've been successful each year, but it's also the foundational pieces we've had with our seniors actually who graduate this year. They've really created that foundation of understanding my expectations, but also understand how this program should be run. And, I'm indebted to them. One of them will actually be our grad assistant next year, which is amazing. So, but that foundational piece and having those, especially those upperclassmen buy in is so very important. But once again, you also have to have a little luck too, especially in the recruiting game and especially on the court. So I wish I could say it's all me, but it's really all our players. And once again, a little bit of luck mixed in there too.
Awesome. Before Coach gets going with some presentation and stories, Jeff, did you have any questions or anything? I guess he should be able to be unmuted.
I don't have any yet.
All right.
Not yet. Soon, though. Soon. So, if anything comes to mind, just feel free to jump out. Want to make this as interactive as possible. And, for me, it brought back a lot of memories. This is probably the first time really speaking about, Coach Knight other than, in normal conversations with my buddies or, just with others that I've met. So it was pretty cool to really dig deep and remember those great days in, 06 and 07 and just to give you kind of an insight to what it was like.
Awesome.
So for us, you did Coach Smith, you did a great job in introducing me. So I appreciate that. And I did a little bit of an introduction as well. So might as well give you a little scene set. So, lessons learned from a legend. My experience with Coach Bob Knight. Never would I've ever thought that I would play for Coach Knight, first and foremost. So that's just a little preface right there. And I'm sure many of his former players never thought they would, play under him as well. So who am I? Look at this picture right here, good picture. I played at Texas Tech from 2005 to 2007. Started 44 games in 2 seasons, averaged 6.4 points per game. One NCAA tournament appearance. I was a part of his Win 880, which at the time made him first all-time in men's basketball history. I was also a first-team All-Big 12. And then the players that I've played against many, many talented and successful pros. Kevin Durant, LaMarcus Aldridge, PJ Tucker, both Lopez brothers, Brooke and Robin, Mario Chalmers, and that's just to name a few. But as you guys can see on my picture, look at those sideburns right there. Loving those sideburns. And every time I look back at that picture, besides the fact that Coach is chewing me out, It brings me back to whether it's I think it's Billy Madison. Like, how about those, how's that milk? How about sideburns? How much is that milk? Or something, that, however that quote goes. So I was got on a little bit with those sideburns back then. Sometimes they thought that I cared more about my sideburns than the game. So, but that's neither here nor there. But a little quick intro for me. Just setting the scene. My first interaction. So as I mentioned earlier, um, I never thought I would play for Coach Knight. It was just one of those things that, I was blessed to have the opportunity. The first thing I knew about Coach, I think everyone is across the board, the infamous chair incident, as well as the media's portrayal. So I grew up in Connecticut, about maybe say 15 hours from Indiana, and obviously from Texas, a long, long way. But those were the chair incident for sure, as well as the media's portrayal, just based on his, quote unquote outbursts, overall were the first things that I knew about Coach. But setting the scene a little bit more, so my official visit was during the Sweet 16 run of 2004 and 2005. And they actually, it was a day or two after they defeated Adam Morrison and Gonzaga. And if you guys can remember, those that are history buffs, like Adam Morrison was an unbelievable athlete, unbelievable player for Gonzaga. And they were picked to win it that year, and Texas Tech upset them in the round of 32 to go on to the Sweet 16 run, excuse me. But my first true interaction with Coach after that was literally, I was in the gym. So in the gym, a couple of the assistants, Coach Chris Beard, who's now the Texas Tech men's coach, Stu Robinson, who's been a long, long time assistant, walked me into the gym, into the arena, and just a beautiful arena, the same arena that they're in right now, United Supermarkets Arena. 15,000. It's the biggest arena I've ever been in, other than, the Excel Center here in Connecticut where UConn plays. So I'm just shooting. I'm shooting free throws. They're like, yeah, Coach will be in soon. And it was almost as if there was an aura around him as he walked through the doors. And for me, it's just like, I think reality truly hit me then. It's like, wow, Coach Knight is walking in. This is, a legend in the game already. And for me to just meet him is an unbelievable opportunity. So that's what I like to say, that there truly was an aura around him when he first walked into the gym, when I was just happened to shoot. But after that, we had a little bit of a conversation, shot in front of him, nothing. I was in dress clothes, so it wasn't as if I was working out. But, dinner, my first dinner with Coach, a dead silent car ride. He had a nice Lincoln Continental. It truly reminded me of being back home with my grandfather. Absolute silence. The radio wasn't on. It was silent. The West Texas wind, as you can hear, rustling outside. But the funniest thing about that first night was the dinner choice, especially in West Texas. Now, when I think of Texas, being from Connecticut, barbecue, Tex-Mex, that type of food. So Coach said, I'm going to take you to this great restaurant. And I'm like, hey, more power to you. Coach knows. So we're driving, and we turn into a Chinese buffet. And not like a Chinese buffet, like one of those extravagant ones that has hibachi and all you can eat sushi. It was like your typical Chinese buffet. So we walk in, he's like, hey, they have the best crab legs in the world. So we had dinner at the Chinese buffet, him and I only, no other coaches, just, talked about basketball, talked about life. And we had huge tubs of crab legs. So that's something for me. It was a very interesting night, not only the silent car ride, which would freak out anybody, especially, in the presence of greatness, but also that dinner choice in going to a Chinese buffet, which is fantastic, but never in a million years would I imagine Coach bring me to there. So for me, what do I choose? So as Coach Smith, gave you a little precursor in the beginning, I was already in a dilemma once I attended Texas Tech. Now, I was blessed to be on full scholarship. It was an opportunity for me to, they really didn't call it Power 5 back then, but you're at the top tier level in college basketball, which once again, I never thought I would ever accomplish. So only on campus for a week. And, I wake up from a nap to see, um, I was drafted by the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. So it was 46th round. I think that's right. Or 47th. I don't even remember, unfortunately, one of those two. But that's back when, it was a draft and follow in those that are MLB draft buffs. So I was drafted and I was shocked. And, I think when that happens, that was always a dream of mine, to be drafted into the major leagues. And I'm like, wow, now I have a huge decision to make. And me being naive, I thought I was going to get $1 million, but I was definitely not that good, especially at that last, 3 or 4 rounds of the draft. So, my mind was moving about 1,000,000 miles a minute. And I remember going back to the gym, back to coach's office, and I spoke with him, and he already knew. And he says, "Let me get you on the phone with 2 friends of mine." I said, "Okay." I really had no idea who he was calling. So 2 friends of his come on the phone. The first one is Tony La Russa, A's manager, Cardinals manager, Hall of Famer. He was the first person on the phone. Just went through a little bit about the draft process, obviously where I was drafted. What the future would bring if I were to take that opportunity, and was really insightful in everything that he mentioned. And I was so thankful for that. But the other person was Bob Gibson. So a Hall of Famer, one of the best pitchers of all time. And he discussed the same thing, discussing baseball, discussing opportunity, and discussing what opportunity I had with Coach Knight. So for me, man, I got drafted. It's a whirlwind day for me. You're only here for a week in West Texas, never been to Texas before this. All of a sudden you're drafted into the major leagues. Now I'm on the phone with not only Coach Knight, but Tony La Russa, a Hall of Fame manager and an MLB player, and Bob Gibson, one of the best pitchers ever, talking about my future. And that's something for me that really resonated. And I think it truly showed Coach had my best interest in mind. Regardless of what option I chose, he had the best interest in mind. And coming down to, was it the right decision? I chose to stay. I think with all the information that I had, with the great conversation with both Hall of Famers as well as Coach, the best decision for me was to stay at Tech, work through the entire summer, and then see where I can go from there. So just a quick summer life. I'm still kind of the precursor of me being at Texas Tech and fully immersed in the game and in what high major college basketball is about. And it truly was a wake up call to me, because I never experienced it. I never thought I would experience it. And it truly was a wake up call. Summer school, 105 degrees, hot. Never felt that heat in my life before. And then summer workouts were unreal. And a quick thing about our summer, schooling, we had to be present for both sessions. So session 1, session 2, pretty much took you from when school ended in May till the beginning of August. So we're required to be present for both. And a typical day of the summer life, for those that, me coaching at the Division II level, we're not allowed to have our students on campus for the summer. So it's much different. And obviously Division III is much different as well. A typical day, it began at 5:30 and ended around 7 p.m. Now we did have 3 days off a week, which was fantastic. It was a Wednesday and then the weekends, but 5:30 to 7:30 strength and conditioning, which was the most strenuous and hard work I've ever done in my life. You had class from around 8 until 2, depending upon when those classes are. And then around 3 till 5:36, you're playing pickup. You're creating that bond with your teammates, the chemistry. And then boom, 6:30, you get a little bit of work in after working on your individual skills, get some dinner, and then bam, it's it's over, and that's a long day, especially coming from a junior college where, I went to Santa Fe in Gainesville, which is an amazing experience, but the days were not that long, that's for sure. Just a different type of structure overall. And the one thing I do remember about our summer life was the quote, "Welcome to hell." And that wasn't Coach Knight more so. That was our strength coach, Coach Cliff. Amazing guy, one of the nicest guys I've ever met at Tech, and a true a true gentleman overall. And especially with my love for the weight room, I love the weight room. "Welcome to hell" was his quote when we were running stairs, like running our ramp from the arena, which is, man, it must have been 50, 60 yards long, straight on an incline. And I was struggling, and he would just keep reiterating to all of us, "Welcome to hell," because it's about 105 degrees out as well. And that was back before. Now I think it's, if it's a certain temp, you can't be outside. So the good old days back then. And just once that occurred, once that summer session, the second one ended in August, I knew it was go time. I was immersed in what we were doing. I was immersed to the life of a Division I high major athlete. And I was just ready to go, ready for the season and ready for whatever the future brought. So 4 main keys. So these 4 main keys were things that I learned and were taught on a daily basis, and things that I still live my life by today. So 4 main keys. Preparation. Coach Knight quote, "The key is not the will to win. Everyone has that. It is the will to prepare to win that is important." Coach Knight was by far the greatest competitor that I've ever met in my entire life. He is the ultimate competitor. And you can see by his wins, by his success, by his transforming of talent, because Coach Knight didn't always have the McDonald's All-Americans. He didn't always have, the top players in Texas. He brought players that fit what he did best. And as everyone calls now, system is a system type. But he brought and maximized their skills. And I'm, case in point, by no means, once again, and I'm not being humble, I never thought I'd be a high major basketball player, ever. And he maximized my talent and our talent so that we were so successful on the court. And he did that with every team he was a part of. And that's something that for him, I feel like it's understated with a lot in this day and age, because it's just the portrayal of Coach and, how Coach is, and he's fiery. But man, he is the ultimate competitor and wanted to win and did everything he could to win. And that's something that I respect so much from him. And it's not everything that he did by any means, because there's a lot of things going on in the game of basketball that, as I'll allude to later on, about the cheating side of it. And that Coach never, ever, ever did that. And that's a testament to his character and all the success he had. But back to preparation, daily work on us. And this was different for me too. So our strengths. So one of the first things Coach mentioned to me about strengths, he said, you have to focus a lot on your strengths. My strengths were shooting, pick and pop. I would say I was a higher IQ type of player. I wasn't a super athlete. I just, I did my job. But strengths, he really wanted us to do what we do best. And I knew I was a terrible dribbler. I'm awful. And I'm still awful at 35 years old. But dribbling was not my forte. He said, just don't dribble then. And I thought, well, that's an easy solution. Just don't dribble. I said, fair enough. So, I understood my role and understood my strength and what my limitations were. And now, of course, I would still do, 1 dribble pull-ups, 2 dribble pull-ups, but my game wasn't to slash. Don't be someone you're not. Do what you do best, and we'll put the pieces together. The daily work on us, especially as a team, was reinforcing our motion offense and our man defense principles, not only in practice, but in our extra work. And those are two of his staples, which I'll talk about a little bit later, as everyone knows. But the other side of the preparation was the scouting reports and film review. And this is where I truly learned how to watch film as well as how to create a great scouting report. Um, with our scouting reports, and I think everyone who's watching this or everyone that has experience with scouting reports knows there's always different ways to give a report. My scouting reports that I do with my team, they're not as in depth just based on how much they absorb their information. Now I give it to them, so it's a little bit easier for them, but that's just based on who we are. If I was at a different team or program, maybe different, but that's just, I do what's best for our team and our personnel. So what coach really did well, and this is once again my first time with film review also, our job was to handwrite the report and absorb that information. And what it also did was hold us accountable. So he would check books, or assistants would check books and see what information we gathered. And that would be on specific players, regardless if they're a guard or a post, their tendencies, also, certain plays that they run, their offense, their defense, just anything that would help us prepare so that when game time hit, we didn't have to think. It was hit the ground running time. And I think what I knew most was the tendencies of our post players. So me being 6'8", undersized post, not 7 foot, not 6'10", 300 pounds, 6'8", about 240, which is solid, but we're going up against 6'11", 7-footers. LaMarcus Aldridge, 6'11", long, athletic. Kevin Durant, 7 foot. Sasha Khan, who played at Kansas, 6'10", about 270. So we're always at a disadvantage. So we had to know their tendencies. And the next word right there, flapper, man, the Plefka flop. I got so much crap for my flopping, but it worked. And I think you can assume two different things with that. You can assume, obviously, being a little bit softer because I'm flopping, which is case in point, yeah, I guess. But it also, it gave me a little bit more rest so I can lay down there and act a little bit so that catch my wind so I can get down on the other end. But also, I think it helped us because you take a possession away from the offense and you get one of their main players in foul trouble. Now, it didn't work every time. I can guarantee that. And I think back then Manu Ginobili was so good at it. But for me, in my mind back then and thinking back to it, I had to do something to separate myself. And I know everyone hates flopping, and I get it, man, but I had to do something against these 7-footers. There's no chance I would block it. So better yet, let's see, if they're doing if their go-to move was 2 crab dribbles to the right, boom, go left, I'm going to set you up and I'm going to sit on that right shoulder and boom, take that charge. Just because I think that puts us in a better position to succeed. Because once again, being 6'8", going against top tier, athletes and top tier professionals who are much taller than me and much stronger, I had to do something to stand out and something to help our team win. So that's why I put that flopper there. And it's always funny to think back about it. And trust me, many of my teammates are like, just get up. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. So it worked at times, it didn't work, but you learn from everything. Another key for me is discipline. Discipline is knowing what to do, knowing when to do it, doing it to the best of your ability, and doing it that way every single time. That was something so huge for Coach Knight. Extremely detail-oriented. And that's another thing for me. I've never met someone more detail-oriented and more of a staff is detail-oriented at coach and coach's staff. So my example, especially, if I had a nickel for every time I heard "don't fade," I'd be a rich man. He was so diligent, and his coaching staff was so diligent in focusing on doing it the right way every single time. And for me, being a shooter, and that was kind of my game, it was proper footwork. It was head over your feet, don't fade. eyes on the rim, up and over the front of the rim. And I think that's the philosophy has changed for that. But it's literally day in and day out. That one moment you slip and fade, boom, someone is on you to say that. And if I honestly had a nickel for every time I heard that, man, I'd be rich. But it truly did help me become, a better shooter, more consistent shooter. And now it teached me, to be that much better of an instructor with my players. And to focus so much on the detail and the breakdowns of footwork and the breakdowns, not only of, okay, what foot do I use, but what part of your foot do you use? When you're driving off, when you're setting up, there's so many different things that play into it, but you always have to ask, why? So my foot, why? Just keep asking why and really break it down. I like to say to the nth extent, the nth, little math thing. I'm not a math whiz, but break it down to the bottom core to really figure out, what causes an issue or what helps you succeed. And the last thing with discipline is coach always mentioned, time management was of huge importance. We have so much time on our hands when you're an athlete. You may not think so. I know that's a long day, but, looking back, being a coach now and being an athlete, you had so much more time on your hands. But you have to know your priorities. Priorities are first and foremost, man. You're here to be, you're a student first and an athlete second, but you are here to play a key part in the basketball program at Texas Tech University. So the same effort you put into those academics, you better put in to the basketball side. And that's through extra work, that's through what you put in practice, film review as well. There's so much, but you have to know your priorities, man. And that's something that's so important. And you can stray from those priorities very quickly in college and very quickly in a setting like a high major, because there's so many distractions, but you really have to have the discipline to focus on what means the most to you and what has gotten to you where you are at that point. So that time management, and I stress so much with my athletes now, it's unbelievable, because it truly is something that I learned more so with Coach Knight, and it truly has helped me become the coach I am today. Another key, integrity. If you get caught cheating, they should shoot you because you're too dumb to be alive. That's a great quote. I actually found that today searching on the internet from Coach. Coach absolutely despises cheating and cheaters. Despises. Coach has done everything by the book his whole career. And that's something for me. I respect him so much overall, but with that, it's first and foremost. And that's on the court, off the court. I remember him saying, if one of his assistants cheats or he finds out, he'll fire his, right on the spot. And that's a leader. He stood up for what he believed in, which is despising cheaters. And obviously he's verbalized it many times in the past and in the media. But once again, as we've seen so much go on in college basketball and so many scandals, he ran a clean program and his players graduated. And that's what is so understated with Coach in his career. Yes, you have the wins. Yes, you have the Hall of Fame. But, man, he's clean, and every one of his players graduated. Everything was by the book, so just, piggybacking off that. And this is my example. Gear, man. Everybody loves gear. My players love gear. Coach, when are we getting this? When are we getting that? I love gear. You love gear. Everyone watching this loves gear. So our gear, so back then we were Adidas. So we had pro model shoes. So not Nike, not, what was that? Maybe Reebok, man, pro models. So everyone knows those, Run DMC pro models, 3 stripes. So quick example of how by the book Coach was and how Coach ran his program. So each sneaker had dates on the bottom of them. So our trainer, who is also kind of our equipment manager, will put the date on the bottom of the shoe. And the only way to get a new pair would be for them to fall apart. and not like, hey, coach, Bear was his name, who's a great trainer, John Murray, unbelievable. I was like, Bear, these shoes are ripped. He's like, show me and prove it. I'm like, right here. He's like, no, they're not. Go away. And I was like, what is going? I just want a pair of shoes. Give me some gear. Give me some clothes, some shoes. Help me out. But coach was so by the book. You got what you needed, and that really echoed to me later in life. Like, so, all this gear, once again, I love it. It's cool, but you don't need all that, man. You just really don't. It's the necessities you need. Especially, sneakers, I think I would love to have 5 million pair of sneakers. Now I have too many. But they are just setting a tone, something as small as you only get a new pair of sneakers if they're ripped, man. That's being accountable. That's just how he is. And that's something for me. It's always stood with me. And I always say that story about having the dates on the bottom. But he was by the book, he despised cheating and cheaters. And, that's something that I truly respect a ton of from coach. And lastly, mental toughness. Mental is to physical as 4 is to 1. It's a huge motto, 4 to 1 with Texas Tech and Coach Beard, who was one of Coach Knight's assistants when I was there. And I can be straight up and be honest. I wasn't the toughest mentally by any means there. I truly believed it was a learned behavior. I think it takes time overall to become mentally tough, and you have to learn to be mentally tough. Some just have it, and that's something that is so tough, I think, for some to really think about, in a way, if that makes any sense. Like, everyone, oh, you're just born mentally tough. No, man, it's a learned behavior. It's learned. And I truly learned to be mentally tough, because if you're not taught that, yes, you may have it, not just natural God-given ability, but you really truly have to learn that behavior. And these 3 kind of questions, it always, pondered in my mind when things would be tough. Was it hard? Absolutely, it was hard. It was the hardest thing I ever did in my life, going there and playing for coach, and, just an everyday life and everything that was encompassed with it. Was there pressure? Absolutely, there was pressure. There's pressure from not only your friends, but the community. There's, media pressure. There's pressure within, your teammates. There's tons of pressure. Of course, it's a high level. And you create your own pressure as well, what I've learned. But yes, there was pressure. And did I know what I got myself into? Yes and no. I think you see the high level, you see what could come of it. But, once again, you had to learn, what it was all about. And that's something for me. I had to really learn what this, high major college basketball experience was about, especially with coach and how demanding he was. And challenged each and every day, mentally and physically. That was something that was literally true to a T every single day that I was there. Physically, with on the court work, with strength and conditioning, and then mentally, just challenged mentally. That's how I think that I became, such a solid player in his system. I by far wasn't the greatest. I don't think I was the worst. I think I was right in the middle. But I think that's what truly helped me grow as a player and just as a man. And I think it was his teachings and everything, these building blocks he set down, these 4 that I mentioned, truly, made me become a man and prepare me for life after basketball. So on the court teaching, so I'm going to take a little sip right here of my coffee. Do you have any questions? Does anyone have any questions? I'm going to throw it out there. Coach Smith, I have the good stuff coming. I just needed to, set a scene for you guys.
Hey, my dad is actually on this call. He was at IU during what season was that, Dad?
75, 76.
Oh, yeah, okay.
You got any questions?
Actually, I didn't know I was going to be asked, so I didn't give it much thought.
Dad, you're on the clock right now. It's like the NFL draft.
Also, Jeff, did you have any questions?
I don't have any.
The good stuff is coming for you guys. So you'll get some good stuff coming. I'm just trying to set the scene, create the layers, so to speak. So yeah, once again, as I mentioned to Coach Smith early on, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask. I don't mind at all. I'm kind of an open book. So I've heard everything.
Uh,
Yeah, but we'll come to on-court teaching. So this is some good stuff. So two vital things we were taught on the court. Okay, so I've been on many Zoom calls throughout, this pandemic, and for me, they've been so eye-opening and so beneficial. I've learned so much, ranging from obviously the X's and O's to culture to mental health, so everything. I've learned so much. And I hear, which I believe in, you need talent to win. So that's a complicated question in my mind because of Coach Knight. And my case in point is me, and I'm not trying to be the most humble guy in the world. I was good, but I wasn't great. I was like a 3-star. I think, I don't even know if they do stars anymore. I just, I was fundamentally sound and I did my job. But this notion that the only way to win is because you have talented players. And, various coaches have named, this coach and that coach, and, they have talent. That's why they win. Coach Knight, in my mind, is one of the only coaches ever to, one, maximize the potential of an athlete, but two, to also not have that top tier talent and still win at a high level, at an elite level. He's probably, in my mind, the only person that can say that. Now, he's had some phenomenal players, but you look at all of his teams, there's no way he had 3 McDonald's All-Americans, 4 All-Americans. There's no way he's had that. And the two vital things that were taught to us and to everyone were the fundamentals and how to play. And that is truly what separated myself and our players, our team, and everyone else from others. The fundamentals for him, we must never overlook the fundamentals. And you really truly have to fall in love with the process. And as I mentioned the preparation side a little bit earlier, we did fundamentals every single day. Every day. And I think that's why we were so good at coach's offense, coach's defense, because of those little things that we focused on. We didn't, jump to, these crazy dribble moves and what everybody is working on. We kept it simple. It was simplistic, but we did the little things absolutely to the best of our ability. And that's why we were successful. The second part is he taught us how to play. And the 3 attributes he mentioned was recognizing, anticipating, and then executing. And what these 3 things and attributes really mean, it really proved that millions of plays don't work. It's just a matter of execution. And Coach was the best in getting the most out of his athletes. And I'm your case in point. And one thing for sure, great players can do the first 2. They can recognize, they can anticipate, and the great coaches can teach the first 2. And that's something for me, I'm trying, playing for Coach and having those great experiences for 2 years. I'm trying to teach our players how to play on a daily basis, and I'm learning through it. And, obviously our IQ levels are a little bit different than what we were at Texas Tech, but recognizing and anticipating are so overlooked in this game nowadays. There's so many just set plays that you're almost as if you're a robot. And you can see that everyone watches certain games and how it's about and how these, whether it's on the men's side, the women's side, it. And I think he truly showed, that the fundamentals and how to play, teaching his players how to play, could make a successful program. So practice structure. So another quote. So as you guys have seen, I've given you quotes from Coach Knight. Now they're not every quote that he's mentioned to me per se, but he's alluded to many of them. The single most important aspect of coaching is running effective practices. So important. So our pre-practices, so we always did pre-practice before our normal practice. We would stretch with our strength and conditioning coach. I didn't put that down, but we did a lot of hip work, hip mobility, just because, in the foreshadowing of what I'll talk about a little bit, next couple tabs, so to speak, just because we cut so much, we screen so much. But a typical pre-practice before our normal practice would be guard post breakdown. I was with the post, 1v1, 2v2, 3v3, working on down screens, cross screens, working on, obviously defending those type of actions. But we'd also work on individual skill work. So this is a simplistic approach. And I'm prefacing this, the things that I'm going to discuss in these next two slides, it's not innovative, man. It's simplistic, but if you can execute it, you're going to be successful. Individual skill work would be, obviously, post moves would be, shooting work, shooting routines, one dribble pull-ups, etc. But that was our typical pre-practice. And then practice always started with V-cut shooting. And that word V-cut is much different. If you ask, coaches, players, V-cut is, our focus in V-cut shooting was setting up our cut and executing our footwork. And it was over and over and over again. I would think in my mind, just thinking back to it now, the minimum amount of time we had doing that was probably 15 minutes to about 45 of just consistent set up your cut, boom, inside foot, shot fake, one dribble pull-ups, just over and over and over again, creating that foundation. And once, we finished that V-cut shooting, and as many of you, those that are, know Coach Knight's teachings and his drills, four corner passing is so important. We did that literally every day. And I do that with my team every single day. Four corner passing, working on handoffs, working on communicating, on the whistle, we switch. And just four corner passing, it's literally you just have four corner in the paint area. You pass to your right, you jump stop, hand off, keep going. Wish I had a video of it, but I don't. So if you want to, you can always just Google that and see four corner passing. And then after that, boom, it was into full court work. Transition drills, circle up, disadvantage. And coach loved to put us at disadvantages. And a funny thing for me, it's, I was lucky to be on, either the first team or kind of the second team. So I really wasn't on the scout team, thankfully, which is it's crazy, it's a crazy life to be on the scout team. And as many of you know who've been on it, it's hard, and you got to really work your way up. But I was blessed not to be a part of that. Always put us at a disadvantage, just because that's how we could truly be prepared for anything that was thrown at us in a game situation. 7-on-5, 8-on-5, and half to full court type of, start at half, boom, two possessions, repossession. And those disadvantage drills were truly helpful, especially against opponents like Coach Huggins at Kansas State. Now he's at West Virginia. They pressed the whole time. Coach Anderson, I believe, I think he's at St. John's now. He was at Missouri. He pressed the whole time. And just preparing for other teams that press. But disadvantage drills really helped us overall. But once again, that's a full court drill. That's not we're just breaking it down and talking. It's like we're going up and down full court. Right after four corner, it's go time. So you better be ready to run. And one thing that I like to do as well as Coach did, we always finished a segment with free throws and water. Free throws were so important, especially when you're fatigued. And I truly think that's so important. It's why I do it today. It gets a little monotonous for our players, but still they don't realize how important free throws are, especially in late in game situations. Practice structure. So as I, mentioned a little bit earlier about man and zone defense, those were our staples. Our staple was a man-to-man aggressive defense. with help. And that's something in my mind that's the most neglected aspect today in man defense. I see it on our level. I see it on the Division I level. I see it on the men's level. You find an athlete that knows help side well, and man, you have someone that's above and beyond the majority of players at this day. And I think for us, it took me about a year or so to truly learn our defense. I knew it, but I didn't know it to the extent because it's a process. And I don't think I was the best help side defender by any means. I don't think I really ever focused on it prior to coach in Texas Tech. But man, once you learned how to be a help side defender, a help the helper, as everyone likes to call it as well. Man, we were truly effective, and we stymied a lot of great players and great teams. And just a couple things about the defense for those that don't know. When the ball is above the free throw line extended, you're one step to your man's side. So that's coach always cut the court in half. Of imaginary line in the middle of the court. So once that ball is above the free throw line extended, you're one step to your man's side. Now, when the ball is below the free throw line extended, so more in a scoring area, you're one step to the ball side. So that's something that's important because it's help. Your goal on defense is to stop the ball, period, end of story. So that's something that was focused on a daily basis, and you had to be on your toes and help side defense. You had to be able to sprint, not shuffle, get to your spot, trap to short corner. There's a lot of different things that had to be going on. You always had to be active. Forcing baseline, vital, and absolutely no middle. Man, if I had a nickel for that too, I'd be rich. No middle drive. And then the one intricacy, that especially I've had trouble with our players is the backhand in the passing lane when one pass away. Everyone's so used to the full deny or even half deny. When you really open up and have that backhand in the passing lane, almost trying to steal those passes, it's a little bit different to teach because not many are taught that. So that was one little intricacy, that backhand in the passing lane when you're one pass away, that really stood out to me and was really truly effective for, jumping those passes or even just hindering a pass from point A to point B. Now on the offensive side, motion offense, old school, 3 out, 2 in, motion offense. Not many teams run this anymore. It's a difficult offense to run in my mind. I think the 4 out, 1 in is the preferred offense now, especially with teams getting away from the back to the basket, or a 5 out, which many teams like to play. But the 3 out, 2 in. Those not familiar with it, you have one cutter and one screener on each side. So you're pretty much partners together. So, if I'm on the top of the key and I'm setting my down screen for my cutter, that's my partner for the foreseeable future. Now, unless I want to deviate and ball screen for the point guard, that's a different story. But, we're pretty much partners and we're working with each other. We always had to set up our cuts and set up our screens. And that's something I see to this day is a neglected piece of screening, is you must set your screen up in order to get the proper angle. And in the screening, you may not think that screening is important in the moment because myself, many that are on the call, like, scroll, I got a screen. I'm not going to get the ball. This is like, what am I doing? Now you're helping your team, of course, but what coach reiterated was that the better screen you make, the more open you'll become. And I didn't believe him for one bit until I set a solid screen, and I was not the best screener. Straight up, I could have been better, 100%. But when I set an effective screen, man, I was open for that pick and pop all day. So he proved me. I was like, hey, you win. Bam, it works. So, how effective your screens are is so important to you getting yourself open as the screener. Just a little thing. Once again, simplistic approach. Come off the screen shoulder to shoulder. Set the screen on the inside shoulder of the defender. So you're attacking that inside shoulder. And always cover your friends. Coach always did that. Cover your friends. And he used another choice word. But he always said that you got to cover yourself in front of your body, because if not, you're going to get hit and go straight down. So always cover your friends. And just another intricacy here, when you're a cutter and a screener, you have a job to do. You have a job as a cutter to get open, obviously reading the defense and get open. As a screener, setting a great screen and get open as well. But, one thing he did mention, if you're open and don't get past the ball, so say I make a great screen, I pick and I pop, boom, I'm open, I don't get the ball, it's the ball handler's fault. That ball better be there when you turn your head. And that's something that in a 3-out, 2-in offense, the point guard is so very important. You must have a skilled and high IQ point guard. My first year at Tech, we had kind of a point guard was more of a combo, and we just weren't very successful. But my second year, my senior year, we had a phenomenal, like a JUCO All-American point guard, Charlie Burgess, who was amazing. And bam, there you go, winning, I think we won 22 or 23 games. So just having a phenomenal point guard that's a point guard one as opposed to a combo truly makes that offense more multidimensional and more effective. And this is the most interesting thing in my mind, because this is what I struggled with most when I started coaching, because we didn't run any baseline out of bounds. We didn't run any sideline out of bounds. We didn't run any after timeout plays. We didn't run any end of game plays. Nothing. Zero, zilch, nada, not one. We didn't. Everything that coach mentioned, just get the ball in and run our offense. Or set a pick and roll and boom and play. Everything was about playing. There was no 17 different plays for how this alignment they're in, a 3-2, a 2-3. We just got the ball in and played. And there'd be so many times where it'd be out of bounds, and it's like, we'll just stand around and kind of move and act like we're doing something, get the ball in and run our offense. But no blobs, slobs, ATOs, end of game plays, nothing. So how that, was difficult for me, especially in the coaching side, was, I wasn't privy to a lot of plays. I knew our man offense. I knew our 3-out, 2-in motion, man defense, motion offense. But, I didn't know, intricacies like there is now. So that was a little bit tougher, and I had to learn that through my experiences. Now our blob defense, we occasionally ran a 2-3 out of bounds defense. Now that wasn't taught. There weren't days, and now I may be wrong. I will take this to the grave. I don't remember being taught a 2-3. Just said get in a 2-3. So I don't remember being taught exactly, because we spent so much time on our two staples, the man defense and the motion offense. And then the practice structure in regards to no conditioning. We never ran line drills. We never did any of that. Now, of course, we did it for punishment rarely. But our conditioning was playing up and down full court. That's why everything, all the transition drills, everything was a full court drill. Just because that's what truly gets you in shape, and that's what you do in a game setting. So that created our win. That created our stamina. And it's just because our practices were so damn hard that's what he was preparing you for, so that a game would be that much easier. And it's all about executing when it comes down to it. So now how I coach, my focuses are literally those keys and attributes I discussed a little bit ago. Tireless preparation. Man, we focus, so much on preparation. Myself, my assistants, our players to a degree, just because we don't want to overwhelm them. But preparation is vital, man. It's I do the midnight rule, where after a game, our game's usually at 5:30 on the women's side, so we're done about 7:30. Win. Losing's a different thing, but if we win, I'll celebrate till midnight, and then bam, I'm on to the next opponent. We lose. I hate losing. I hate it with a passion. I think, I learned that more so with coach. I always hated losing. But, I think I hated it even more with coach. But if we lose, then I'll just jump right into it right away. But the preparation so very vital, and it truly has helped me succeed in the role I'm at right now. instilling discipline in our players. I'm a little bit loud. Everyone thinks it's because of coach. I'm just have a loud voice, I think, based on genetics. That's what I like to say. I guess it's my excuse. But I instill discipline in our players. You know, there's a standard you must set at post-university. There's a standard to be a part of my program. And one thing for me, I hate arrogance. I hate it with a passion. You can have swag, you can have swagger, but arrogant, no. That's not how we do things. So I'll humble you right away, because that's how coach was. Coach humbled you right away. And that's how you learn to be a better person and a better player. I think that's something that's so important to learn it in college, so that when you go into the real world, the real life atmosphere that it is, especially during this crazy time, then you are truly prepared for anything that's thrown at you. 4-to-1 mentality, mental toughness. It's a learned behavior. It takes time. There's processes you have to do in order to become mentally tough, but it's a daily focus for yourself to be mentally tough. You can't stray away from it. You have to have that mentality in everything that you do. Integrity, you know, that's something that I respect so much about coach, that he ran a clean program. Never, ever would he cheat ever in anything. Integrity is so very important, not only on the court, but off the court as well. And then lastly, on the basketball side, effective practices and efficient development. Being as efficient as possible in skill development and developing our athletes, but having the effective practices so that you're truly preparing your team for the competition so that you can win. You know, there's a quote, I always remember it, outside of our locker room. It was the Bill Russell quote. Of course, I always say I remember it, but now I can't. The games on our schedule, might as well win it. So that always stood out every time we'd walk out, and you're like, yeah, might as well win it now. So that just was ingrained in my mind, more so, you know, as the time I was with coach. So closing. So I actually, you know, found this quote, you know, a couple days ago, and it really struck a chord with me. So this is a coach quote. I didn't just ask for their best. I tried to force their best out of them any way that I could. Not just to make them better players, but to be able, after basketball and in all walks of life, to be at their best, to give their best, to be as successful as they possibly could be. And that is so true, and so, you know, I was at a loss for words, honestly, when I read that quote. My life wouldn't be what it is now without coach. And I'm forever thankful. You know, I haven't had the opportunity to see him in so many years, man, but I'm just so thankful for all he's done in my life and everything that I've learned and the man that I become because of him. And just everything, the challenges, just for him giving me an opportunity, you know, a kid from Connecticut who had a crazy road leading to a junior college in Florida, and to get an opportunity to play on ESPN countless times, you know, and to make my family proud is something that I'm forever grateful for. And it was all worth it. Man, how hard it was, the craziness, the long nights, you know, everything was all worth it. So that's kind of my closing, but now we get to the fun stuff for those that are listening. So that was more kind of the meat and potatoes. Boom. Now we got the good stuff. So do we have any questions before I go through the most memorable experiences? And then I have some hot takes for you guys. So I know you guys are pumped about this.
Any questions out there?
Let me ask you a question on the going back to the defense.
Sure.
And when I used to play ball just level, I remember them teaching us never to let your man get the baseline.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It seemed like coach let opponents their man get the baseline, but then somebody come and somebody else come and stop them.
Correct.
Create a double team at that point. Am I observing?
Yes, 100%. No, yes, because you know, there were plenty of times where I was lazy and I just let him go, which is not what you're supposed to do. He would use funnel your man to the baseline. And then your help side defender would come, and the ideal place that we would trap would be the short corner. So we would trap short corner every single time. So it was not only the responsibility of the on-ball defender to funnel their opponent and keep them in front of them, especially kind of, funneling or suggesting they go to that short corner area. But the help side was so important to get there outside of, the paint, because for the most part, I believe the restricted line now wasn't there back then. I don't truly remember, but you always had to get outside the paint to get a true charge. But no, that's spot on. We would trap the short corners. I think it puts so many teams at disadvantages because once you're behind the basket in that short corner, now there's not much room for real estate for you to move. Now you can dribble back to the corner and try to work your way out, but we're going to continue that trap out there as well. So yes, absolutely. We forced baseline, absolutely no middle. And, a great team now, once again, is Texas Tech on the men's side. You watch them. They're so much more athletic than we were. So, but they do a lot of different tweaks to it, but they still keep the main focus of forcing baseline.
Good. One of the I've noticed is that, and I've heard a number of former IU players talk about coaching and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Just like yourself, I never heard him referred to as Coach Knight. It's always just Coach.
Yeah, that's Coach Knight or Coach, and I always call him Coach. Coach. I don't know if I've ever said Coach Knight. I think I do it here. Just so everyone knows who I'm speaking about, even though it's pretty much about Coach Knight, but I know I mentioned Coach Beard. But yeah, Coach, that's what I would call him. I think I would say Coach Knight a couple times, but it's the respect factor. I think, he had a great quote where someone called him by his first name, and he snapped at him. But he's earned that respect, and, Coach and Coach Knight, it's one of those things that, he is the ultimate coach. And, but no, I've definitely heard that too, that they only call him Coach.
I got a follow-up.
Sure.
How did he feel about his nickname? How did he get his nickname? The General.
The General? I honestly don't know. You guys may know more than I do. Maybe just because he was a general in the service? Would that be it?
Might have given that to him. I'm not sure.
You might have at West Point. Boom! That was like a fish right there. You just threw that on the line for me to take. But thank you for that. But yeah, I think the General. And that's where it's when you mentioned, or Coach Smith mentioned the Robert Montgomery Knight. It's like I'd be damned if I ever called him that. So that's why in my thing, lessons learned with Coach Knight or Coach, that's just something, that's the respect factor. And I was really taught, I was brought up fantastic. My mother was is still an amazing woman and taught respect right away. But no, all of my coaches, I call them Coach. I don't call them by their first name, regardless of, because I'm older now. I just still call them Coach, even if they weren't my coach. If they were a softball coach in my high school. Hey, Coach, what's up? So it's that respect factor that's so important, and unfortunately is neglected a lot in this day and age. But that's another story for another day. But any other questions before I go into these beautiful experiences?
Well, Jeff is muted, so I will take that as him not having a question.
Sure. All right, Jeff. So memorable experiences. So first one, the roar or boos of the crowd when Coach walked out. At home, it almost gave you chills because you could just hear them erupt when Coach walked through the ramp area. But the boos, man, many of our opponents, they did not like Coach one bit. So those boos were sometimes even louder than the roars at home. So those are truly memorable. Another memorable experience in my senior year, 2007, we upset Kansas and Texas A&M in a week. I believe Kansas was I think they were, I don't know, you guys can probably double check, maybe 3 or 4 in the country. A&M was, I think, 8 or 9. But they were 2 top 10 ranked teams in the country, beat them in 1 week. beat Kansas. I believe it was on a Monday, and then Texas A&M was on a Thursday. So I always remember that because they were both home games, but it was just like unbelievable to even think. We were talented for sure, but we were never top 25. I think we had a couple votes here and there, but to beat 2 top 10 teams in a week, definitely memorable experience. The next one are plane rides home. I had the luxury of being on coach's plane because I was a post player, one of the tallest guys, even though I was only 6'8". I think our tallest guy was 7 foot. And then it went 6'9", and then me, as long as with my other teammate who was 6'8". But we were on his plane. It was a Lear jet, man. We live in jet life like Ric Flair, jet flying, limousine riding. We didn't do limousines, we had buses. But the plane rides home, especially after losses, were crazy. So I remember I sat in a bucket seat. There were like bucket seats in the side of the plane. That was just, it's like a jet. So it wasn't as if there was only about, let me think in my mind. I say I have a photographic memory, but I think everybody thinks I'm full of, what. But there were 2, 4 bucket. So that's 7. There were 9 seats on the plane. There were 6 players, coach, our video coordinator, and then whether one of his buddies or if it was a manager at that point. So every time we were on a ride, that plane ride home, they wouldn't be too long of a ride, maybe like an hour and a half max. But when you heard, get me the film, and Bubba Jennings was our video guy back then, and who's a stud star for Texas Tech, I believe in the 70s. When I heard, and when all of us heard Coach say, get the film, we knew exactly what that meant. He'd bring us up and cuss us out a little bit about, look at this play, look at that. But how I like to do it, I like to fake fall asleep. So I don't know if many of my teammates did that as well. I'm sure they did, but to fake like I'm sleeping so he wouldn't see. Because if we made eye contact with him, bam, the ire of him was right there. So he would figure something out about us. Excuse me. So those plane rides home were always really memorable. And I remember him breaking a laptop because he was so mad. And I was like, man, we're in for it tomorrow. Next one, a quote, win or blank, ... So let's set the scene. So for those of you that know, obviously men's basketball, there's always like a tournament early on in the season, whether it's, the Guardians Classic, whether it's Coaches versus Cancer. So we were in the Coaches versus Cancer Classic my senior year, and you have to play 2 quote unquote opening round games in order to make it to the final destination. So Kansas City was ours. The first year was Madison Square Garden. So 2 games, usually it's against, kind of low to mid-major opponents that you should take care of business with. But you never know, of course, because I think back then there wasn't as much parity in my mind from what I remember as it is now. But anyone could upset anyone any day. We were home those 2 games, which is great. But still, you never know what could happen. So the two games we had, I believe it was a Gardner Webb and I think Sam Houston State. So they were good teams, but it wasn't as if you're playing a high major. So winner ... So the quote was win or die. So we knew he was joking, but we knew it wasn't that. He said, "You do not want to be with me for a week before our next game." And we all thought about it. We're like, what did he mean, win or die? Was he joking? Like, what are we talking about? And then we truly thought about it. If we happen to lose to one of these teams and didn't make it to Kansas City, and in the Coaches versus Cancer Guardian Classic type of atmosphere, like, we're going to have a crappy week because it's going to be hell to practice for a week before our next game. So I always remember that win or die, and I'm like, man, we definitely did not lose those 2 games, that's for sure. So we ended up going and playing in the Classic. But that always stood with me. I think it's funny. I think those these days would take offense to it, but man, come on. It's one of those things where, it's memorable, and we knew obviously it didn't mean what it meant, but it's just, we had to win those games and put that premium on it, and we took care of business. Now the aftermath of a loss to Baylor. Coach never liked Baylor for various reasons. He always, I felt like, just had disdain for them. And back then they weren't like they are now. I think they started to get really, really good maybe in like 2010 and above. But we ended up losing to Baylor at their place my senior year. And we lost, I think, by 3 or 4, but we should have beaten them, and we didn't. And that aftermath was unbelievable. It was so, I've never seen Coach so mad, and I've seen Coach mad many times, but this was to a new level because of his disdain for that program at the time. So our aftermath was, we got back at about 12:30 at night. Sat in the locker room. We just sat there. So we're waiting there. It's 12:30 at night. Always wait for Coach to kind of, end the night. Just have some closing remarks before we leave for our homes or for our dorms. So we're sitting there, and an hour goes by. I think it's like 1:30. We're just sitting there. I was like, "Where's Coach?" So we have managers come back and forth. He's like, "I don't know. We're just waiting. Go check on him." "Oh yeah, he's not ready yet." So it's a little bit after 2, and managers come in and said they're all gone. And we're sitting there. I mean, we already lost. We lost a tough game, and we shouldn't have lost. And what do you mean everyone's gone? The coaches are all gone. They left. So like, they kept us here. So I was like, they're challenging us. I was like, man, that sucks. But he said, yeah, you're back here at 5:30. 5:30. I'm like, man, that's like 3 hours, or that's not even that much time. He's like, yeah, 5:30, you won't need a ball. So so we asked the managers who gave us this information. It's like, is this true? He's like, yeah, you guys got to be back 5:30. So we get there 5:30 back. Mind you, we played the night before. I'm sure, it is what it is. One of those things. So we get there at 5:30. Sat there a little bit. 6:30 now, doing it again. No one shows up. Another half hour goes by. Boom, no one shows up. Come back at 3. Like, come back at 3. So I'm like, we're. I think it's the mind games, the mental side. We're being challenged again. So we come back at 3. And we do not pick up a ball for a 2.5 hour practice. We did every type of conditioning drill you could ever imagine. Now, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, we never did conditioning. We never did line drills. You never did stairs, nothing. We did everything you could imagine. We did setting up cuts for an hour dry with no ball, set up cuts. 2 to 3 steps here, boom, set up cut for an hour straight. Every single person. We ran the arena steps. We did wheelbarrow races. We did off the backboard, the team drill where the whole team, throw off the backboard. You got to run the full length of the court, go back. Did that about 6 times. We did, I think, it for like 5 minutes straight. We dropped it a couple times, did that. We did line drill. We did 3 and 30s, which were 3 times down and back in 30 seconds. Anything you could imagine we did without a ball. And I just remember that, and man, that was probably the toughest day I've ever had overall, by far. And we had to come back later that night to practice as well. So it was one of those things, hopefully, in NCAA or Carologs, that probably was thrown out the window. But that was something for me that we were so challenged that it changed us as a team. In the next game, we pounded whoever we played against. But he made us pay, and, we didn't give our full effort in the game, in my mind. And that's just one of those things. We just didn't do well, and we just didn't stick to our game plan. That's why we lost. And, we paid for it, but man, did we respond ever after that? So I always remember that loss to Baylor. Night school. Those of you that remember, it was an ESPN like reality show back then. That was my first year, junior year. So a walk-on would earn a spot on the team. So we were on ESPN. They did the reality show every week or something. So that was so cool, where you had competitions against the guys that actually beat us in like a 3-on-3. And we got cussed out for that. And the next time we annihilated them. But that was always cool to be a part of a reality show on ESPN, where Tyler Hoffmeister was our walk-on that actually earned his spot. And he worked his tail off and truly earned it. So that was something that was pretty cool to be on a reality show overall. And then kind of another experience here, just words of encouragement by Coach's former assistant and current Texas Tech head coach, Coach Chris Beard. Pulled me aside. I was struggling my senior year. I kind of lost my starting spot and, wasn't playing, up to my potential, and kind of was fading quickly. And just a little words of encouragement to just ask me, hey, we're going to need you, going forward, just pick it up here. And just a little confidence booster, truly helped me transform that year. Our starting center at that point, who kind of took the job from me, he actually got hurt. And then bam, I was back in my spot. And I truly believe if it wasn't for him and just that little bit of confidence that he brought in me, I don't think I would have turned that season around like I did. And I averaged, I think, like 10, 11 points a game in conference after that. And for me, I'm like, hell, that's a feat in itself. But just something small like that word of encouragement, and that just, we believe in you, truly helped me change my perspective and change my mentality for that second half of the year. And, if it wasn't for that, I probably wouldn't be ready for that spot that our post player unfortunately got injured at. But that's where you can see why Coach Beard is so successful with his program, and why they were, runner up in the national championship last year. And then little hot takes here for you guys. A couple hot takes. Craziest fan base, Kansas, by far. So I'm sipping my coffee still. It's keep me awake in my older age. So craziest fan base. So those of you that remember on Facebook, the Pokes. So maybe Coach Smith or Coach Metzger you can poke, if to show someone you're interested. I don't even know exactly what it was about, but the 2 days before we played Kansas, I had like 600 pokes from Kansas students, random people. Males, females, professors, they were trying to get in our head as much as possible. And then once we got there, holy geez, it was like we walk into Rupp, especially after warming up, and once the fans are there, and it's just I'm just speechless. I really can't explain what it's like, because it's just an experience that is unlike any other. They're all together. They're doing rock, chalk. It's like a cult in a way. But you can see how crazy their fan base is, but how, immersed in Kansas Jayhawk culture they are. So I always thought they were the craziest fan base by far. Coolest arena that I played in was Madison Square Garden. Being from Connecticut, you see it on TV, you grow up, it's the greatest arena in the world. I'm a big wrestling buff, WWF and WWE, which it is now. I don't, for me especially, I embrace it so much more now, because I can think back like, man, you got to play in Madison Square Garden. At the time, I thought it was cool, but it wasn't. It was just, hey, just a place we're playing. But in retrospect, I'm like, man, what an experience that was to play in the greatest arena in the world. Most fun game, it was, beating Kansas in 07. So we were at home and the fans rushed the court. That was the first time fans ever rushed the court for us. And that was, as I mentioned before, beating two top teams in a week. That rushing the court, like, if you've never experienced it, there's two sides of it that you have. Yes, it's cool as all be. Like, this is the coolest thing in the world. Secondly, it is the scariest thing in the world because they swarm you and you cannot move. Being 6'8", 240 at the time, once you have about 10,000, fans or students rush the court and you can't move, it becomes a bit claustrophobic. So yeah, that was an experience in itself, and just one of those things. I think that was by far the most fun that we've had, especially after the game too. I think everyone on campus, was so excited, and we had a lot of fun that night as well. Best player I played against Kevin Durant by far, 100%. Played in 3 games. He only played 1 year at Texas, but we played them home and away, and in the tournament. They pounded us twice, and one time we were up at half, and then he erupted for like 36 and 20 something not in the second half, but total. I think we held him to 8 points in the first half. And my claim to fame, I love to tell my team, I dunked. I like to say I dunked on him, but I really didn't. I dunked next to him, or he didn't want anything of it. So I dunked, I think, from the baseline, and he just went the other way. So I guess that's like a claim to fame, dunk next to, the great Kevin Durant. Kind of most success for me against an opponent was Baylor. I feel like I played as well as possible against them. Once again, that's when Baylor wasn't as successful, as they are now. They set a great foundation, but that was just kind of the most success I've had. And that's why it was so frustrating when we did lose that game and had a crazy day after. I seemed to play well, but couldn't get the job done. So, and that's something for me. I look back in retrospect, and I very rarely look at how I played back then because it's so far away. But for them, it's like, man, I almost averaged like 20 points a game in every game I played against Baylor, and that's like unfathomable. Like I can't even believe that. I'm like, holy hell, how did I do that? So that was kind of the most success. And then best food in West Texas, Texas barbecue, Tex-Mex. Those that don't know, Texas barbecue is unbelievable. Tex-Mex is Texas, the Mexican side. It's so good. And it is very true, the quote, everything is bigger in Texas. So for anyone that needs to know that or has any qualms, everything is bigger in Texas. Contact information, don't worry about this fuzzy picture. It was a long time ago. Sideburns again. My cell phone at the bottom, my Twitter, Coach Jon Post You. I truly appreciate the time to speak about Coach a little bit, kind of, reminisce about my days back then. And I hope everyone got a little bit out of it. But once again, thank you guys so much. If you guys have any questions, anything, you can email me, you can call me. My phone's always on, especially during this time. Any way I can help, that'd be great.
Metzger, it's your turn. It's your time to shine.
Yeah, Metzger, let's go, man.
All right. Yeah. So that was great. Everything you said, I'm just sitting there like, wow, that's awesome. But I love Coach Beard too. I have a player from 2 seasons ago playing at Texas Tech now.
For sure.
And he loves it. And so I can see why you loved him so much too.
Yeah, and he he had such an impact on me, and that's where when you're in that situation, especially as an assistant, and he paid his dues, man. I mean, that's something, that not many have done, from every level. He's been at literally every single level. But just that, I knew right then and there he'd be successful because that's what he stresses, that player relationship as well. So there's no doubt in my mind that, I believe he'll win the national championship eventually, when no one else thought Texas Tech would ever get to the level they're at. But I know next year they're going to be legit. So I'm excited for that.
So what I want to ask is, from being with Coach Knight and
Sure.
then when you played professional professional baseball,
Yeah.
What is something you took away from Coach Knight and brought it to the game of baseball at that professional level?
Yeah, it honestly is. It's the preparation and discipline, because, I played with the Angels for 2 years. I was in the lower leagues, and then I played independent professional for 6 years after. And it's it's a grind. And that word is so cliche. Like I hate saying that, but it truly is, man. But I found my schedule in time management when I was a professional. I was so regimented that I woke up at a certain time, whatever time was, because there were long nights playing professional baseball. That was my detriment, but I had a lot of long nights. They're fun. But every time say you wake up at 9, boom, I'm at the gym by 10:30. Once you're done at the gym, say around 12:30, I'm already at the field by 1, eating my lunch there and getting prepped for my pregame, which I started at around 2 and 2:30 for the night's game, and our batting practice was at 4. So I mean, literally, that was my schedule every single day, and I very rarely took days off from working out. Because it's just something I was just disciplined and prepared. And that was my preparation on a daily basis. I needed to be in the best shape possible. But I also needed to get my work in prior to games because I was a reliever. So I wasn't a starter that has, 4 days off, 5 days off schedule. I could be called at any moment. So I need to be ready at any moment. So though the discipline side, the preparation was so very important. And I think that's why I lasted so long in professional baseball. And once again, those that don't know independent baseball much, it's similar to the minor leagues. It's just non-affiliated. But, I played against some unbelievable competition. I played against former World Series champions like Keith Folk, those that know from the Red Sox way back, Armando Benitez, Carl Everett. Those names there, they're journeyman major leaguers. I played with Louis Lopez, who played for about 10 years in the big leagues. But I played against a lot of talented players and established players who were World Series champions. And that preparation discipline is so important in those.
Mm-hmm. And so my last question is, what do you think is the biggest misconception about women's basketball?
The biggest misconception, that is boring. It's not boring. It's what your interpretation is. And I say this on a daily basis. And I said, there's really only one thing in my mind that separates men's basketball from women's basketball. Do you guys know what that is?
The dunks. I can say they do that now anyways. So
they do, right? But that is the only difference. Because, why do you want to go see a men's game? And obviously I'm not comparing the upper echelon. Those are different. It's an extravaganza. It's an event. Because they dunk. That's it. And if you love the game, if you love the fundamental side, you love the strategy side, that's what the women's game is about. And that's for me when I see so many ignorant people say that the women's game is boring or it's not entertaining. I'm like, the WNBA players, you should go play against them and see how talented they are, because they will put a whooping on you in a heartbeat. And I'm not BSing you. I'm telling you, it's a fact. It's going to happen because they're so talented and they're so their IQs are amazing. They're skilled. They play the game the right way. So I would say it's because it's boring. That's a misconception. There's so much strategy. I think once you educate yourself about women's basketball and you understand it more so than just being that outsider who's, oh, it's not men's, I can't dunk. You're always going to have that perception, but by far it's boring. I'm like, okay. As if every single men's game in the world, every level is the most exciting thing, the most exhilarating thing you've ever seen in your life. Thank you. Exactly. Case in point, over. So yeah, that's it. But you're right. Many women could dunk now. And if we can get one at Post University, holy geez, you better watch out.
Dad, I think you're still on the call. You got anything to wrap up here?
Just 2 quick stories, if I may.
Yeah, sure, Dad.
That, like Ben said, I was down at IU for just 2 years on campus. We were there. We only lost 1 game, and that was to Kentucky.
Oh.
And hated Kentucky since. But one of my best friends and roommates in that fall of '74. You mentioned walk-on tryouts. He tried out for made it to the final 5 walk-ons, and they didn't take any walk-ons that year, but he was in the final cut as far as trying to make the team.
Yep.
So and then also several years later, he and another roommate of mine were at some kind of event where Bobby was doing the talk, and this other guy was a roommate of mine. He made the mistake of asking Bobby a question, and the question he had was that, as you probably know Larry Bird came to IU
Yes. Oh yeah.
at first, but then wasn't for him. And my buddy asked Bobby, he says, "So, Coach, how much better do you think the '76 team could have been if Larry Bird would have been on the team?" And you can imagine Coach Knight. He pauses and he says, "Let me think." He says, "We were 32-0.
Yeah. Yep.
How much better do you think we could have been?"
Exactly. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Yeah, it's man. I mean, that's something that for me, I didn't even. I mean, once I did research on, it, I'm like, wow, because growing up in Connecticut, the Celtics are everything to myself, and Larry is obviously one of those players I look up to, especially as a kid, because they were so great. But when I read his book, and I'm like, wow, he went to IU, and then it's once again, it's such a crazy thing. It's like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. Everyone says that. You know how that is. I don't know if you guys may be too young for that, but you always lead back to Kevin Bacon. And one of my buddies did that, and I actually lead back to Kevin Bacon because of Coach Knight being in different movies and being in like anger management movie. But no, it's so crazy that he could have had Larry Bird and to be that close. And I think, what is really crazy to me is that what he mentioned about Michael Jordan, the best player he's ever seen, and that's something that now you're like, wow, like Michael Jordan is like, and obviously The Last Dance and all that. So it's just, it's such an amazing experience that I went through. But now it's just like, wow, it's so much cooler than it was back then, because now I just appreciate it so much more being a little bit older.
Awesome. Okay, this was phenomenal. I got plenty of notes, and we'll have this up later posted. I'll go back and watch it. I'm sure we'll have plenty of people back and watch it. But
Cool.
I really appreciate you taking the time. It's past 9 o'clock now, so I don't want to hold you too much longer. But
no worries. But I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys. Yeah, thank you guys for having me on. And I love what you guys are doing, man. You're educating everyone, and I just appreciate it because I get to reminisce about the past and talk about someone who's been so influential to me.
I enjoy it very much, John.
You got it.
Thanks, Coach.
Take care. You got it.